Hey, good morning, Monica. It's so nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I
Nice to
love
see
your
you too.
bright shirt, and I can see that your books are color coordinated, which is amazing.
That's a leftover from COVID, but I love it.
I love it too. I love it too. I'm big into aesthetics, and I'm glad I'm fitting the palette with
I
my.
know, and I'm fit. We should maybe change because
Yeah,
you look really good with the green
true. Yeah, you
department,
would
and I
fit here
think,
quite nicely with the. Yeah, I have to move it so that we see more pink,
and
actually.
I can come and do a swim in your.
Yeah, you can. So last time we saw each other in person was in May when we were running a Walk the Talk program at WPP for 45 female leaders because we want to get more leaders to the top. And you came and did the fireside chat, which was, where we always put two role models, senior women on a stage so that the participants can ask lots of questions. So you were brilliant. Thank you for doing that. And that's why I asked you to come here and do an interview for me on She Can, where we tell stories of women for other people to learn from. So, my first question to you is tell us a little bit more about yourself, how, what you do, and where you are today.
So today I am, well, as you said, my name's Monica Taylor, and where I am today is at Hogarth, a WPP production company, and I am Global Chief Client Officer. I joined about 6.5 years ago to run the Nestle business, then moved to run the UK business, which is the largest office for Hogarth, about 1,200 people, and then took over Global Chief Client Officer officially in the beginning of this year.
So you need to explain to our audience what is a production company? So what do they specifically do? And also what does Chief Client Growth Officer means on a
Yeah.
day-to-day business?
So, what production means? It's a very good question, and I think even some people, many of our clients don't really understand it, and even some people within WPP don't understand it. So production means everything from an Instagram post to shooting a George Clooney ad and everything in between. So
Okay.
our clients are Apple, Dyson, Rolex, Nespresso, many, many more. And we work with clients to essentially create the best content. And the thing that's fascinating about it is I joined this world actually about 15 years ago. Previously, I worked in creative agencies.
Yeah.
And when I went from creative agencies into the world of production, some of my agency friends said, "Ooh, you're going to the dark side. Why are you going to the world of production? What's that all about?" But it was a really good move for me at the time for various reasons, which maybe I'll talk about later, because of the way that production has changed so exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about the multi-channel options. So whether it
Yeah.
be, in store, out of home, all the channels that you get on your phone, you can imagine how many ads you're served knowingly or unknowingly on your phone. But also how you can create content. And of course, most recently, AI has completely and will continue to completely change the way we create content. But even before that, virtual production, modular content, super shoots, there's so many different ways that you can create content. I'm really glad that I went to the dark side, so to speak, about 15 years ago. Now I forgot what your other question was.
The other question was, what does a Chief Growth Client Officer do?
Well, you're right. You're exactly right because you added growth in there, even though my title is chief client. But you're exactly right because I'm focused on growth. So I am focused on growing our client business through partnership with WPP. And we have more and more consolidated WPP pitches,
Yeah.
but also partnering with media agencies. There's a big opportunity to partner with media agencies, again, because of the multi-channel world that we live in, but also creative agencies. Because the creative agencies, the way they come up with work, the way they think about work, and the way they can visualize work when they partner with production,
Hmm.
is a completely new and really cool world.
Amazing. Now, my next question is, Monica, how did you get there? So, how was your career so far? Was it like a ladder? You just went up, 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 up? Was it more like a tree where you jumped from tree to tree, from branch to branch? Just tell us a little bit how you got there.
Um, I think I would love to say it was a ladder. I would love to say it was perfectly planned, that I knew exactly what I was going to do at what time, but that would be a complete lie, and that's one of my cardinal sins.
Well, thank
So
God for that.
it would be so boring. So you can probably hear from my accent that I'm not from London, even though I have lived in London for 25 years. I think the best way, since you talked about trees, I think the best way to describe it is jumping from tree to tree to tree. And I would love to say that I was a very agile trapeze
Winger.
artist, jumping from tree to tree to tree. But I think ultimately what happens sometimes is I would fall out of the tree,
Oh,
almost break a limb, um, but sit up, brush myself off, and then try and climb up a different tree.
I
Um,
love
so
that. How fascinating. Tell us about your falls and how you
well,
climbed up again.
so I started working in advertising in I think it was in 1994. Terrifying to say, but there we are. I've said it now. Working at a very small creative agency in Jacksonville, Florida, of all places. And it was the first job I had after being a substitute teacher, after doing all kinds of silly things, having had a history degree. I went to university in Paris and then University of Florida, and I ended up with a history degree. So it was the first job that I really liked, and I thought, actually, this is very interesting. There's some very interesting people in this profession, and it was, I don't know, it was quite fascinating. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do this properly, I was living in Jacksonville on the coast just kind of by chance for various other reasons. And at the same time, my friend called me and she said, "Why do you live in Jacksonville?" She's like, this is not a good place for you." She found me an apartment in New York. Long story short, it was harder to find an apartment in New York than a job. I moved, I got a job at Gray, and I think within a year I got fired. So I think that was the first hard fall out of a tree. I
And do
didn't
we
break
know
any
why you got
bones.
fired? Sorry, I'm being a bit curious
No,
here.
no, of course, of course. It's a good story. I've told it a few
Mhm.
times now. So I got fired, I think mostly because I really didn't fit in. I didn't have the same kind of vibe. I didn't have the same energy. Although I will say that I learned a lot. I was working on Procter and Gamble and I learned so much. It was, I would say it's kind of the boot camp of advertising, Gray, on Procter and Gamble. I mean, ultimately why I got fired is because I approved two double page spread Christmas ads in the months of June, July, and August, which was obviously kind of a waste of media.
Nobody.
But I think I think that was the final straw. I think it was a lot bigger than
But
that.
you learned that then. I think we always learn more from our
A
mistakes.
hundred percent.
Yeah.
100%. I really learned a lot. I learned a lot how I managed it in my brain and how I managed it with my outlook. I went on holiday for 2 weeks with my parents and my sister in Sweden. I didn't tell them, which I think
Oh,
is quite fascinating because I have a very close relationship with my family and they would have been very supportive. But anyway, I didn't tell them. And then I came back to New York and got a job at DDB. So I just jumped into that DDB tree.
it's
And then
another.
I moved to Paris and worked in Paris briefly. And then I jumped in. I don't think I fell out of a tree and broke any bones in Paris. No, that was good. I love Paris.
No, you just
Um,
had lots of wine and nice
so
food.
brilliant. And then I moved to London. And in London, I fell out of many trees. Um, and yeah, I think sometimes living in different countries in many ways, well, let's say in some ways it can impact your career because you don't have that kind of ladder climbing ability when you
Yeah.
move from country to country. But I actually think that that very small downside is worth it because you learn different ways of communicating, different nuances, different dynamics and energy in meetings. If you compare working in New York to working in Paris, in New York, if you ask someone where they're going on vacation for the summer, they'll look at you like you have two heads. But in Paris, if you don't ask someone where they're going on holiday in the summer, it can be perceived as almost a little bit offensive and not friendly. And I don't mean to like massively generalize, but that's a tiny example. But actually for me, I think living in these different countries and sometimes being the only native English speaker in the room, this is a very beneficial thing to know what it feels like to be completely different, and not be able to communicate in the way that you necessarily would want to communicate.
But you spoke French.
I learned to speak French. Embarrassingly, my French from going to the American University of Paris was rusty.
So
But
we're having an Emily in Paris moment then.
I love that show. Just the clothes alone were just
I
amazing.
know. But everybody will think about that now. The American working in an agency in Paris, not speaking fluent French.
And there, no, I was much better than Emily. I did actually learn to speak French, and I loved that experience. I loved working in Paris, and it
And
was.
why did you go to London? I would have stayed in Paris, frankly.
I would have stayed in Paris too. However, my now ex-husband got a job in London as a lawyer, and I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. What the heck? It's London is a good place to work in advertising, but it was a tough time. 2000. There was a lot of negativity. It was tough to break in. I think I was told, I want to say on at least three occasions that I didn't speak English, by, of course, a British person.
Oh, wow.
So the first time I think I was stunned. And then the second time I said in Swedish, well, we can speak Swedish if you prefer,
Or
um,
French.
or French. Then the third time I did it in French. And I mean, that kind of, it moved the conversation on quite quickly.
Yeah. Nice. Nice one. So where did you then work in London? Which
So
agency? Which or the
I
same?
started, yeah, I started working at Lowe, that had just merged with Lowe Howard Spink. So it was Lowe Lintas when it was still based on right on Hyde Park. I think that was the first time I got made redundant by Lowe.
I
Then I
know
worked,
Lintas from Germany.
sorry.
I know Lintas from
Oh, you
Germany.
do? Yeah, yeah. And Lintas, Amirati Purist Lintas. Oh my God, such an old. That's where I worked in Paris as well. So they transferred me.
Okay.
To their credit, they transferred me. And then after that, I worked at a little creative agency called Campbell Doyle Dye with
Mhm.
Walter Campbell, Dave Dye, and Sean Doyle, which is an amazing experience. I mean, such amazing award-winning creatives,
Wow.
and worked on some beautiful creative work. That's the best creative work I've ever been a part of. And it was pure joy. And then after that, I went back to Lowe. I it's debatable why, but I did. Um,
Too much comfort zone, maybe.
Well, they recruited me saying we want you to be a change agent. Your experience, so Lo from before, but then you've worked at a little creative hot shop.
Does make sense in the interview.
Yeah, it made absolute sense. But I think within getting there, I don't know how long the CEO got fired. Then I got made redundant when I was on maternity leave. It all
Nice.
kind of
Is that allowed legally?
it is allowed,
Okay. I
apparently.
thought that wasn't allowed anymore.
It
But
is
maybe.
allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was a falling out of a tree. And actually, I think that fall out of the tree, because that's when I was getting divorced. I got made redundant. There was just so much going on then. So that was a challenge
Yeah.
for oh no, that I wasn't getting divorced. Anyway, I'm getting confused about my falls from trees, but
Too many jobs, too many husbands.
whatever. No, I'm only on my second one.
I know. But I wish you were on your fourth.
Well, you can interview me in a few years and we'll see how it's going.
Okay. So, what are your main learnings or takeaways to date?
I think my main learnings, if I mean, I don't spend a lot of time looking back and, reviewing, but I as part of a little bit of preparation for this, I do think the ability to have a healthy perspective on life, and I know it's an overused word, but I think it's an overused word for a reason, and a high level of resilience is key. And really being able to, and actually that I have to say, this broader perspective on things did come very much as well as part of being a parent. Because you do see the world in a different way. You do see the world through your child's eyes, but it
Yeah,
helps put work into perspective. So I think a
yeah.
healthy perspective and resilience, and also just being positive, and assuming the best, planning for success, and just going for it.
You said that before, that assuming the best is, and I'm not assuming the best. I have a problem with trust. So for me, that was a big learning from your talk, assuming positive intent. I mean,
Yeah.
I find that quite fascinating. So can you just say more about that? Because I love it.
Well, I think part of it is maybe it came a little bit. I don't know if it was during COVID or when it was, but you would join these calls with so many people,
Yeah,
sometimes hundreds of people. And I think if you can listen to, you have two voices, or, many voices, but you have the kind of more
Gremlin.
negative voice, and then you
Yeah,
have the more positive voice. And I think I just really tried to push into assume the best. And I think what that means is don't necessarily think that people are thinking about you. In many cases, they're thinking about themselves.
no, in most cases.
They,
Yeah,
how they are interacting on the call. So
yeah,
just, come with positive energy. And I think that's where if you come with that openness and positive energy, it's not always, but it's more often reciprocated.
yeah.
So that's I do think that comes a little bit with experience, and again, being a parent, and figuring out how you navigate when you want to say no but when you want to say yes, and all these things. So it's something that I try to do. I don't always succeed at it, but I think fuck it, just
Brilliant.
assume the best.
Love it. Now, what are your current challenges and how will you overcome them? So we know advertising industry is tough times,
Yep.
you definitely reduce in a way. There will be less of you doing it. AI is now just being integrated, but we also don't know
Yep.
what that means. Also, we have this weird generational gap where we are, I guess, Generation X trying to lead Generation Z, and now Alpha. Our kids are Alpha. You know what
Yep.
I mean? It's like, so what are your current challenges, and how do you, if you know, how do you overcome them?
Well, my current challenge at this very moment is that my 16-year-old son is just about to finish his GCSEs.
Hmm.
And I think trying to keep someone positive and motivated through this very long exam taking is
Yeah,
definitely a challenge.
yeah,
On a more professional basis. And again, I try not to split things because, ultimately your personal life absolutely overflows into your professional life and vice versa. And in fact, you named so many of the things that are challenges. We have clients coming to us just saying, we need to use AI. And they don't even really know, they don't know what that means. But in a way, actually, rather than being critical of clients, well, they don't even know what it means. Take it as a positive, and take the perspective, well, we can help them learn what it means. So
yeah,
that's where I think, again, I know I said it at the beginning, but I'll say again that I feel very lucky to work in this side of advertising, because I think the use of AI, anyone goes into ChatGPT or goes into even, Gemini on Google and searches something, you can see the how AI can work and also how it can't work. So I think the
yeah,
challenge there is to figure out how we bring it to our clients with concrete solutions that actually really help them and
Yeah.
not just a tick box, I'm using AI. And I
Yeah.
think that's fun. I think it's really it's fun to be able to completely learn new things and work in a different way, which I think, sometimes we can get in a rut, and being able to do that is a really positive thing. Now, how do I address those challenges? Well, it's probably a little bit what I said before, which is keeping a healthy perspective. And I think, in today's world, if you go on, how I try to carefully curate my news source, and not get too down about all the things that are happening in the world. I think it's easy to kind of like
Yeah.
scroll into a dark vortex. So I am quite strict about how I use my phone. I'm very careful about it, and, set protect your sleep reminders and all of these things, which I think is really,
Mhm.
really important. I set my own limits on my phone, which of course I can bypass, but it's just a positive reminder. And then also I listened to this podcast called the Huberman Lab. And
What? The?
Huberman, Huberman Lab.
Okay. And who is he? Or what is the?
Well, he's a scientist, and
Okay. Nice.
he's an interesting guy. And one of the things that really rang true for me is how important it is to try and see. This is going to sound a bit crazy, but just stick with me for a minute.
Hmm.
How important it is to see the horizon if possible, and
Yeah.
how critical it is for us to kind of, look into the long grass, so to speak. And the reason why I thought it was very fascinating is because right at the end of COVID, I started swimming in Hampstead Heath, and in the Serpentine. And I was loving it for so many reasons. But part of it too, I realized when I was listening to this podcast, is when we go very early in the morning, you see the sunrise over Hampstead Heath in the city.
Yeah.
And it kind of explained to me why in COVID that, the whole world was essentially having an anxiety attack, because we basically sat looking at a screen like this all day, or
Yeah.
the small screen on your phone, and so few people, could see the horizon. And I think seeing the horizon, whether it's scientifically proven, which, he said it is, or it's about perspective, all these things. So anyway, that's quite a rambling
I'm
story.
just downloading his episodes. He looks
It's
in
very long. His chats are very long.
37. Some are 37 minutes, so it's amazing.
Yes,
So
but
just
some
for
are
our
about
listeners,
2 hours.
yeah, so
So
for
they
our
can be a
listeners,
bit long.
it's
Um,
about improving science and restoring trust in public health, essentials, improving health with stronger brain-body connection, healing from grief and loss,
yeah.
machines and creativity, behaviors that alter your genes to improve your health and performance. Oh, I want that. So
Yeah,
I've
no, he does
already
some very,
downloaded.
very interesting he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I overcome it. I try to see the horizon in many ways.
And what about our lovely Gen X leading Gen Z? All of that, the intergenerational stuff. Is that something that you struggle with, or know how to manage? Or because I have a lot of clients talking about that, and I still have to design the workshop to bring the two together, which I would love to do. But any thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of think I was listening to this other podcast, which is about don't weed your garden. Embrace the weeds.
Okay.
Many weeds have beautiful flowers,
Yeah.
and they are thriving in your garden for reasons that you can and can't explain. And not in any way to suggest that people are weeds, but I think what we need to do is embrace different generations, instead of fighting against it, instead of
Yeah.
mandating number of days in the office, instead of mandating all these things. I think we need to be much more open-minded to different patterns of work
Yeah.
and different ways of working. And I think,
Yeah.
again, embrace people for what they have and what they can bring to the party. In the same way that we would want them to embrace, oh God, those are
Yeah.
all the old people who don't know how to use this, that, and the other. I think it's such a shame that we can't actually find a balance of learning from each other. And again,
Absolutely.
I think that comes from, assuming the best, positivity. And, maybe it is a little bit about being clear about expectations, but part of that too is I think there's a little bit of a fear around being clear. So what we expect is this. What do you expect from me? And
We do
making
that
sure.
with our kids now.
Well, that's the thing. I think, I think mutual respect and trust
Yeah.
is key. Because I mean, trying to force people, I find it not a smart way to manage it. That's my,
And it's so nice because I know that Stephanie, who runs this, she can, it's hers.
yeah,
She feels exactly the same, and I feel
yeah,
exactly the same because she has 3 kids. I have 2 kids. They know each other. Actually, her son is my godson. My daughter is her goddaughter, and
yeah,
we talked about that in a podcast actually together, and we said there's so much we can learn from our kids.
totally.
And don't forget, we brought them up very differently to what how our parents raised
Yes.
us, and rather than slagging them off or saying, they're spending too much time on their screens or whatever, we should say, yeah, but what's the benefit? What's the
Well, that
amazing thing about them? And I mean, I can see there's so much empathy, there's so much interest for the world, their interest
definitely.
bigger. There's so much more contemplation. I also think they stick together quite well. I definitely think there's less bullying, and stuff. So there's so many good things about them,
Yeah.
and my daughter is quite wise, my younger one, and gives me a lot of advice, says things where I'm like, actually,
Same.
I mean, our youngest is the wisest, and it was the same in my family, so in my birth family. So
Yes, yes.
where I was the youngest. No,
Of course.
of course, yeah. So yeah, so I'm with you. So next question is, what
Oh,
are you?
wait, let me say, sorry, well, let me say one more other thing.
Yeah,
I think for that, the responsibility lies very clearly on both sides. And since you were
yeah,
talking about kids there, I think the same. We were very strict about, well, I should say, I'm very strict about phones at the table. And, we eat together and, there are no phones at the table, but we have conversations. And I think that's where it's the responsibility. You can't just say no phone and then sit there and stare at the wall. You have to,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I think the
Your
same,
husband is on his phone.
no, I'm very strict about it. But I think the onus is on, it's not even an onus because that makes it sound negative, but I think it is a mutual responsibility.
Absolutely, and it's
Yeah,
reciprocity. Yeah,
completely.
yeah.
So sorry, I
Don't
interrupted.
worry, don't worry. So, what are you most proud of?
Well, I think I would say two things. One is the fact that I have pulled myself out of falling out of many trees, and am uh, still hanging on to working in advertising, which actually I feel very lucky that I still really love my job. And I also had my dad was a Pan Am pilot. He loved his job. I think when you live with parents who love their
Yeah,
jobs, I think this is a gift.
yeah,
And I feel lucky that I can pass that on. But I think the other thing that I'm super proud of is my son. He's 16. I have a great relationship with him. Is it all perfect? Definitely not. But I do feel really proud of that.
really
And
good.
love it.
And my last question is, if you had one message for the world, and we are having quite an interesting world right now, what would that be?
I think people need to recognize that they need some space in their brain, that you don't always have to have information coming into your eyes, into your ears, and your brain all the time. So give your head some space. Don't kind of doom scroll. And there is positive in the world. And try and see that positive. Again, not trying to act like there isn't negative, because there certainly is a lot of negative, But I think, the responsibility is on all of us to try and help make a change, but also, you know, see that there's positive. I always take when I see this like a big brick walkway or a wall and there's a little flower growing out of it. I always take a picture of it because
Nice.
I think this is a beautiful thing that you have this like, huge, brick or whatever it is, paving stones when you have this little flower growing out. I think be
Yeah.
the little flower.
Oh, I love that. That's such a nice ending. Thank
I'll
you.
send you a picture that
Like
I've
that.
taken recently.
So thank you, Monica. There's a lot of insight in here. And what I really love as well is all your falling out of the tree and coming back. And, I think that will give our listeners a lot of good ideas and also understand that, failure is a good thing. And
Totally.
that's where you learn and you are allowed to make mistakes. I always say to
Yep.
my kids as well, it doesn't have to be perfect. You are
Yeah.
allowed to make mistakes. I mean, you will make so many mistakes and also life will throw so much shit on you, sorry to swear, but that you don't even anticipate and then you have to deal with it. And that's how you grow as a human being. So thanks, Monica. This is a delightful interview. So thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure. It was really fun.